Alright, so we're going to start with the disassembly by pushing the seats forward and rotating the back up so they're out of the way. We're going to take the B-pillars off first. They'll allow us to pull the entire headliner out smoothly. And I like to start with the coat clip up on top, and you just kind of give this a little twist, pull off the cap, and I always have a little container up front that I put all of these pieces in so that when we go to reassemble, they're all in the place that I know up front on the dash, and they're away from where we're going to be doing the bulk of the building. So we'll stick these up front, and you're going to start with the, what is this, a 20 on
Torque
here?
20.
Torque 20, and pull this screw out. We'll move down to the bottom of the seat belt here. There's a bolt, and then the D-ring down here. So we're just going to remove those three fixtures, and we'll be able to pull that B-pillar. So while I work on this one, I will also, Jared will be working on the other one over here, and with the electric drill, you make pretty short work of it all. There you go. And again, collect your pieces and put them in the same container up front. So once those are removed, this pillar is connected by little clips on the back. So really you just got to give the pillar a yank and slip the seatbelt through the back of it. And you kind of want to be quick, giving it just a good tug. If you pull slowly, you can bend the plastic, so you just get a good fixture, or good handle on it, and give it a pop. The seatbelt will then slip through, and the B-pillar comes off. It's pretty simple. So we'll remove the other one.
On the bottom of the B-pillar here, once you snap the metal prongs all the way down, the very last step, there's two footings that slip vertically. So instead of pulling off away, you'll actually, the last part will be to pull the B-pillar up. It'll slip right out.
And that's important to recognize, especially when you're putting the B-pillar back in. This detail can get in your way if you're just trying to smash it straight up against the wall. So once these B-pillars are removed, this headliner will be able to slip down and away from it much more easily. However, we don't take this off first, so we'll move to the back of the van and we'll pull off the ceiling headliner in succession from the rear moving forward. So let's move back here. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just pull these lights, and it really doesn't matter where you start. But we'll get in close shot here so you see how. But basically, on one side of the light, there's a little bit of an indentation, and you're able to slip a small screwdriver or a little pry tool underneath that. You pry that side over because it has a little pressure clip. The pressure clip comes down, that one side drops down, and then you'll slip the other side of it out. Let's show you a demonstration over here. All right, so Jared's going to demonstrate pulling this thing out, and again, it's pretty simple, but we'll get you a shot of it here.
Lots of pick and pry tools you can use throughout the van. One of the ones I find works the most is the flathead screwdriver. Almost everybody has them. You can use them for a few different things that we'll get to later on. Pulling the light, you'll find the indent on that light flathead. Just pull right down, and then you'll see it's connected by a wire here. It's just a matter of giving a little tab a push, and then the plug will pull right out. You can see the indentation on that light where you can stick a flathead in to pull the light out. Comes right out.
So we're going to go ahead, pull the rest of the lights. It's the same process on each one, and we'll move on to removing the headliner. To take these headliners out, you'll start on these plastic clips. Now, when you put your pry tool underneath, there's actually sort of two layers, and you want to go kind of carefully in between and pull the top one out Then you can pull the bottom one out. And as you see, there are two different layers. Often what happens, if you're having trouble with it, it's because you're prying on the bottom one and you haven't slipped it in between to get this, just the top one to come out. So you want to be kind of careful in pulling just the top one out. So we'll go ahead and pull out all of these clips. These center ones are just plugs. You can leave them in. Do not worry about those. We'll just take out these surrounding ones. Once those are done, as you can already tell, this is ready to come out. There's a clip in the middle here, and as you move through the van, each one of these panels will have one more clip in the middle, and it's underneath the layer of the forward next panel. So you kind of have to get in there in between the two, and you'll be able to see that there's another black clip, same kind of principle, where one comes out and the next one is behind it. And if you move that out like this, then this panel will be able to fully release. And as you move forward, you can kind of pry it down. We'll release the sides and we'll show you how to do that. And you just kind of move forward, release that next one, and it'll fold down. So this one will come out like this. And as you move back, there also will be clips that are held into the ceiling, and you can either give it a tug.
Start with the middle.
Yeah.
You can wedge your fingers in here, and then you work your way to either side where you're getting close to a clip. And if you can, wedge your finger in on the other side of it, and then quick pulls are usually best. You will break most of these clips, but you won't be reinserting your headliner, so it's no big deal. That quick pull, and as you can see, this guy didn't break, but that's what your clip looks like. They're just straight push plastic pins. Work your way over. Quick pulls and all those have released. Now we show you the butterfly tabs. On the right side of the van, this hole is where the headliner has little butterfly wings that go grab the outside. Again, another great use for a flathead. You can just push up from underneath. Where you find one of those, they're easy to see by looking from underneath, and you can just push directly up with any sort of pick or pry tool, and then it will pull straight out. And you can do that on each leaf as you remove them.
And if you want, you can actually kind of go through and release all of them in the beginning, and that way as you move through, you're just pulling the panels right off the top. Right here is one more plastic clip, just like that was on the back door, and we do the same thing, pulling this guy off to release the front large headliner from the wall as well.
When you reach each consecutive leaf, as Chad showed you earlier, pulling the center black push pin to be able to take the whole part out, it can sometimes help where they have the lights cut into the ceiling. You can actually use that as kind of a handle to begin the pull and get yourself better access. Now this piece still has that black push pin in it, and now you've got plenty of access to it. You can go ahead and pop that thing out. Drops right out, and your next leaf is gone.
It's a pretty simple process. We'll take this last one out here before we get to the large center one. The large center one is basically the same process. It just has a lot more clips that are connected to the ribs. So we'll go through and just put these guys down and release the butterfly connections to the side of the van.
As Chad's removing the rest of the butterfly wings, you can see the large ceiling panel spans the whole front half of the van. And as Chad mentioned, there's plastic plugs on each of the ribs going across the ceiling. So you need to find your tension points and begin to pull to release those tabs like before. Quick, nice dart type pulls. Chad will do the same from the rear. And then what's holding this on the right side is your window gasket. And you don't have to be afraid if that releases, but it's just the rubber trim for the door seal. You can pretty easily just manipulate it right out of that. Chad's releasing the last push pin style in the center as we showed you before on the other panels.
Do be careful when you're doing this one not to bend the front headliner too much right here. You don't want to have a permanent indentation on that front headliner. So be a little bit gentle in how you release that front one so that you don't have too large of a pull on this front headliner. It is the piece of the headliner that will remain in the vehicle. So be a little bit more delicate with this front headliner.
And here's where we can see the B-pillar, having been removed prior to the headliner, no longer blocks the corners of this front piece of the headliner, so it can come right out.
And then we got the last.
There's actually three clips
there's
on
three
the
on this.
headliner.
Yeah, good call. So one in the center, one on each side as well. So you have to find the black connection on either side.
If you decide that you are going to remove your headliner to put hush mat or insulation behind it or to get it upholstered, this can be another area where it's useful to release all the gray tabs as we did on some of these back ceiling panels first to give your hands a little more space in there.
That's a good point. We are going to be removing it.
Just like
Gives us a ton more space. Nice call, Jared. If you're not going to be removing it, you can obviously leave it there. However, with the kit, we do provide all the hush mat and the insulation for the front, and it does make a huge difference for sound. So we always recommend pulling the front headliner out. And once it's out, we like to go through and pop all of these little plastic tabs that were left in the ceiling. So if they broke...
Yeah, V-clip works great for that. Another use for the flathead is just jamming it into the plastic and pulling down, and they fall right out. If you don't remove these, some of them can get in the way of the installation process later when we go to install the ceiling struts.
All right. Lastly, this comes out. You will not need it again. And there's just little foam hooks that are on the bottom. So just reach behind, pull those little foam hooks off. If they snap, it's not a big deal because you won't be saving this piece.
We encourage you to recycle them. Find a styrocycle place and they will accept them. Most people will never find another use for them, so recycle when you can.
All right.
Last part of taking the ceiling off. With the formed piece that Adventure Wagon has created, you'll also want to remove this standout from the factory headliner. And that's a T30 bit. Comes right out. You won't reuse it, so you can recycle that if you can as well.
Yeah. We'll pull this off when we pull these side panels off, and that is actually the next step. So move directly into that T30, unscrew each of these clips.
T25 on the walls.
T25, excuse me. If you have the crew van, if you have the Sprinter van or the cargo van, without any of those panels, you don't have to worry about this step. Here, there's one more fairly common clip. You'll find them throughout the wall panels, and they have a little screwdriver slit in it. They're designed to be twisted and then pried out, which is the same sort of technology as the other clips, and then pry behind and remove. Some people have luck just coming straight in from the side and pulling them out like that. But if you're finding any resistance, twist it first, then pull it out. But wherever you encounter these clips, that's how they come out. We'll go ahead and remove all of them, and Jared will pull out the screws from the main clips up here with the T25.
The T25 on top is just a self-tap screw into the sheet metal of the van. So counterclockwise, it'll come right out of the wall.
And Jared, if you're done with that, we can put the T30 on and remove the headliner. Oh, you already got it. It's one step ahead.
T25 on the walls. It's a T30 to get that bump out from the factory headliner off. To make sometimes quicker work of this, if you pull the initial push pin out and the body of it's left in the wall, you can move on to the next one, and once you have all the push pin pieces out, you can just grab the panel and pull it right off the wall, and the body of the push pins will come right with it. Just like that.
Just like that. All right. Moving to the front, there are no front clips on this one. This is just a pole situation, kind of like the ceiling is. All right, so we decided not to edit this out because this is actually a very common thing that happens. It happens with us. We were just laughing because we've gotten through whole builds without realizing that we didn't remove or address the door. So we're gonna leave this in there as a reminder. The door is going to be open, it's going to be out of your way, and it's going to be kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So if you don't want any surprises when you're totally done with your build, and then you close your door and realize, wow, I didn't work on it at all. Just remember, this is part of the disassembly process. It's the same technique as pulling off the one that's underneath the passenger or driver's side window over here. In that you just give it a yank. So there's only 2 panels. And the big trick here is just remembering that you have to do it. All right, we're gonna open it back up. Just remember, each step, hush mat, insulation, and paneling, you're gonna come back and you're gonna close this door and work on it. All right, now we're gonna move up to the front headliner. All right, the front headliner, those of you who are familiar with the previous, pre-2019, there's just a couple of changes. It makes it a little bit easier. Jared's going to walk us through the whole disassembly of it, including the center console being a little bit different, as well as the A-pillars. So Jared, just go ahead and show us the system to pull in this headliner out.
All right, some of the simplest steps first. As with all sprinters, the visors actually come with a factory retention clip. So as it seats, you cannot pull them out of place, which will block access to the screw. So the first thing you have to do is clear the retention clip, and it's just a little U-hook, which I'll show you. You get at it from behind and pry it back towards you, and it'll kind of release. Then you can let the visor down and slide that out to the side. That's the piece we're looking at right here. And this is the part you just pull back underneath and it'll slide off like I just did there. That gives you access to the T30, which is what you'll use throughout on all the visors to release. Once that's clear, there's a little tiny cosmetic cover, just a little pop cap you can take right off. You'll have access to that bolt, and then you have 4, 2 underneath and 2 on the handle that will release the whole visor. I'll go ahead and do that really quick. All right, for the visor removal, we'll go ahead and get that out of the way with the retention clip moved. A little pro tip here, especially when it goes to reinstallation, which we'll cover at that time too. These front 2 bolts on the low side holding the visor in are actually cantilevered slightly forward to rear to forward, sorry, going up, which will absolutely aid in installation, but also when you're taking it out. Instead of the bolt being straight up and down as you would think it is, it's actually slightly tilted, which can kind of help the angle of finding that bolt. And it should just drop out to you. that back and go for the left side. And at this point, this whole underside is going to be free. Now we'll remove the 2 handle bolts and this whole unit will come out. As we talked about before, the little vanity cap here pops right out. Now we have access to both forward bolts. And at this point, the only thing left holding the visor in is this front left corner, which is the hinge point for the visor itself. You'll essentially just pull it straight back to you and it'll fall out. This little piece right here is what kind of grabs the sheet metal, and you just pull it back and it comes off. And that will hang out for reinstallation after you're done with the headliner area. The next point is removing the A-pillar cover and the airbag gasket over the driver and passenger side head. Another little trim piece, it exists right up here and it says airbag on it. It's just a little vanity cover, so you don't need to worry about messing anything up by just a flathead screwdriver, getting behind it and popping it up first. That will expose access to another T30 sitting right behind there, which will release the entire A-pillar. Bolt comes out. And there is another push cap that kind of holds this in as well. So same thing as before when you're kind of taking the sealing out, if you can get your fingers behind the top of it and sharp pull. Releases that one. There's another one towards the bottom. And this whole thing comes free. As you can see, there's a metal clip there. And there's a plastic one back here, and those just pop out similar to the other panels in the van. So releasing the overhead airbag cover is a little bit easier on the 2019 by pushing up from the bottom and getting a flathead screwdriver levered into the hole here. There's a little hook on top, and by levering it and pulling it back, that will unhook it and allow it to drop. So give yourself a little freedom by first pushing up and then rock backwards. You can kind of help pull down sometimes. And that side's released, and I happen to release the rear at the same time by rocking the whole thing, and it's ready to drop. The only thing holding it in is the factory door cover, so you can just pull it towards you, and this thing is ready to drop out from the bottom. That's the clip that we released from hanging on top here by putting the flathead screwdriver in and pulling backwards. Freed both of those clips.
Okay, rolling.
All right, so having removed it from one side, it's the exact same process for the other side of the vehicle. You can start on either side, but you're just going to repeat exactly what Jared showed you on the driver's side, on the passenger side. And once we pull that out, we'll move into pulling the headliner down and how to release the center console. Okay, so we removed the other visor. Removed the clips over on the airbag cover, so this is all ready to come out. I'm leaving it still underneath the weather stripping just to hold this edge up and it's not falling on us. This center mirror cover slips down, and Jared will show you that. And at that point, we'll pull this down and tilt the headliner back. And when we tilt the headliner back, that's when we address the center console. In the old models, you were able to pinch the side of it, pull it down before, and kind of push it back up through. That's not the case with the new model. So we'll get to that as soon as we release the headliner and pull it down, and then you'll see how there's a little slider that's exposed, and that'll release the center console.
All right, as Chad mentioned, the headliner is just about ready to come out. One more thing we can do to give ourselves a little more room with pulling the headliner out. This factory trim cover piece right here on the windshield, it's really easy to remove or free. And you think of it just in terms of sliding down the angle of the windshield. You can just kind of grab it and move it down the face and then just leave it free, and that'll give the nose of the headliner a little more freedom here. As you can see, our overhead airbags are released, so this headliner is ready to be pulled back, and we're going to do the tilt and show you how to remove the center light console here.
All right, so we're just going to release this airbag from the weather stripping that we kept it in. And
now the headliner tilt begins. So before removing it completely, the center light console is actually still attached, and we'll show you the slide cartridge that releases the head light here. Reaching over the top of the headliner, there's a slide that you can depress with your thumb or whatever you can reach that will release these two tabs and let the front of the light swing out for removal. Pushing that lets the front of the light drop out just like that. Now the light has to come back through the headliner to take it out, which Chad will help me with as I hold the headliner. I'll grab from him. Now the light is out and we can back the headliner out.
all right, instead of letting this just dangle here throughout the whole build, we're going to fasten it up here just with a piece of tape. Just something to keep the tension off the wires and protect that connection. Now, be careful when you're dealing with this, because you don't want to touch off the SOS. There's now a new SOS feature, and the phone features are all up on here. So you might be inadvertently making phone calls or sending SOS signals out there. So just be aware of that when you're handling this thing when it's free floating, that you're not pushing all the buttons up above. And if you want to be very careful about it, you can do the battery disconnect before you do any of this, and just work through the whole build without having to think about touching off any of the alarms on the system. But for now, and we'll get to showing you that, but for now, just go ahead and tape and fasten this to the front, and we'll move on.